You're listening to Season 2 of Beyond Insights, your go-to podcast for all things accounting, business, and technology.
Unsure how to improve your leadership skills, or whether you're suited to being a leader to begin with? Looking for ways to build a stronger team or take better risks? Then stay tuned.
From cybersecurity, blockchain, and AI innovations to sustainability, employee retention, and work-life balance, we've got you covered.
We speak to knowledgeable and insightful guests from varied backgrounds, industries, and locations from all around the globe.
From this multiplicity of thought, we strive to find solutions to our most urgent business problems.
Whether you're a small business owner, an accountant, entrepreneur, or even a young professional looking to progress, this podcast is for you.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive right in and go beyond insights.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond Insights. Today we are joined by Michele Hili, the Finance Solutions Team Lead at Scope Solutions. Scope has been transforming businesses with innovative, tailored, cloud-based solutions for over a decade. With established headquarters in Malta, a strong presence in the Middle East, and a recent launch in Cyprus, their distinctive approach to identifying and integrating cohesive solutions within business operations has been the catalyst of rapid growth and continued success. And today we're going to be discussing how accountants and business owners can find solutions to their business challenges with cloud solutions. Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Mick.
Hi, Alex. Happy to be here as usual.
We've given you a bit of a formal introduction, but I thought maybe we could have a look at like you as a person behind that. What is something that maybe would surprise people about you?
To be honest, something surprising probably is that I technically never wanted to become an accountant to begin with. I actually always wanted to go into the whole like architecture space and the design space. It was always I was always a creative person. I loved that. I ended up studying basically sciences, biology, anything. And then I landed on accounting by accident almost, and I'm falling in love with it. And then I landed by mistake on the whole accounting tech side of things, which is now my career that I love to do. Even that was by accident, to be honest. So some people tell me, you were made to be an accountant, but it took me a long time to realize that, apparently. But so yeah, I think I have other surprising things, but I guess I won't share everything.
That's really interesting. I think a lot of time people make assumptions that like you always know what you're going to do, where you're going to end up working. I can kind of also relate. I'm not an accountant, but working in accounting software, that I studied film and TV initially, then I studied English literature and creative writing. So also not such a clear path to get here.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy accidents along the way.
Exactly. Listen, sometimes like my friend always says me everything happens for a reason. And there were so many things. Like sometimes you say, I shouldn't have studied chemistry, I shouldn't have studied this. Or in your case, you'd say, I'm sure you've sometimes thought like, should I have studied film? And I still ended up here, but sometimes every step along the way leads to anyway where you end up, I guess. So happy accidents. I like that term, happy accidents. It's a fun way of seeing things.
And returning to the work that you do at Scope now, can you tell us a bit about your journey to becoming the finance solution leader at Scope? How did you end up in this space and what drew you to it?
Yeah, so the story started, to be honest, when I worked at a Big Four company. So I used to work at one of the Big Four in outsourced accounting and a bit of tax, a bit of everything really. And when I was there, I think so I spent 5 years there, and around the fourth year, something along those lines, I was approached and asked kind of, would you like to join? There was like an internal team that was focusing on tech and just tech improvements within the firm. And I kind of decided to go for it just because, again, I was always the type of guy who loved exploring new technologies, and I'm just very curious about tech in general. Anyway, ended up in that team as well. Started working, but it wasn't my full-time job. So I was still working fully in accounting, but that was kind of a side task force, if you want to call it that. And I ended up enjoying that more than the accounting side. And it made me realize that what I was doing from an accounting point of view could be done a bit better or could be more efficient. And it just got me really focusing on that space. And then I met Scope, and I just instantly clicked with the guys over here. We realized that we kind of had the same mindset. We were very aligned with what we wanted to do. That was almost 5 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. And I joined as a solution specialist. So the role was someone who does research and helps with the implementation in general. And then we started growing. So when I joined around 5 years ago, we were around like 15, 20 people. Nowadays we're around 44. So we yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's almost tripled in size, which was and back then it was still Malta only. Now we have Malta, Cyprus, and Middle East, and we just really grew. And I guess I was lucky enough to be appointed as one of the team leads to take care of the solution specialists, to really help them a bit with direction, guidance, and yeah. So that's how I ended up here.
Very cool. And to give like a better sense of some of the work you do, what does a kind of typical day look like for you?
Ooh, this is a tough question because my days are so different. There will be days where if I had to just blend it and focus more on the things that I do, it's more so I will have a lot of client facing meetings, where we are doing a lot of business analysis, discovery calls, understanding what businesses need, and planning projects and seeing how that's going to work out. Then I would have a lot of internal management, planning the teams, capacity planning projects, and essentially deliverables, and also a bit of design, not a bit, a lot of design of the solutions, because we give app stacks, so not just one app, but a collection of applications. So I get very involved in determining which applications we're going to choose for our clients and how they're going to interact with each other. Um, and that would be, I would say, the majority. Then something that I wish to do a bit more, but unfortunately I don't have as much time nowadays, is the research element. So when I was a solution specialist, there was a lot of time for uh, outreach, understanding the apps that exist. That's how I came across Sift. In fact, I met Sift at ZeroCon, and I carried out a bit of a research exercise there. So a lot of research, but that's mostly it. But again, there are days where I spend the whole day at a client, and then there are days where I have back-to-back meetings for 8 hours straight. So it varies. It varies.
That makes sense. And moving on to some of the ways in which you help solve challenges with the cloud, what's your approach to uncovering the root causes of the challenges that businesses are facing?
So to be honest, that's the toughest part of our job, just because it takes time to really understand what the problem is. I think acknowledging the problem is usually the hardest part for our clients to do, just because sometimes they don't believe there's a problem, so they will tell you, I've been working this way for the past 10 years. I don't think there's an issue. And then when we start discussing certain things, like, okay, didn't realize I could do this. So I think our approach really is a very in-depth business analysis exercise. We never suggest software like after one conversation. We always make sure to really do a deep dive on the client, the business requirements, the opportunities around them, and usually we try to be very open, and we try to get the clients to be very open. I think one thing that helps is that most of our team used to work in the industries that we serve. So for example, I'm an accountant by background, my team are accountants. So when we speak to other accountants, we have lived their problems, and we understand what they really need, just because we had the same issues. So that helps a lot. And throughout Scope, we're all people like that. So if we have, a team working on the construction industry, we have people who actually used to work in the construction industry, and that always helps us really identify the root cause, because we've all experienced the same problems that our clients experience, essentially.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It really helps if you have that industry understanding from your own
Yeah,
experience.
for sure.
And when it comes to finding the right apps or the right tech stacks to address these challenges, how do you go about that?
That's the $1 million question, to be honest. It's a combination of things. I think our experience helps a lot, so we know where to look and what to look for. I think we've been in this business for over 12 years now. We've tested literally hundreds, if not thousands, of applications, so we really know the strengths of different applications and where to look. So I think we just really, really delve deep into, again, always keeping the client in mind. So we always make sure that we really understand what the client needs and the key list of objectives. And once you have that, then I wouldn't say it's easy to find the application, but it's easier. So it's much easier for us to go through this massive list of applications and start narrowing down and literally eliminating apps based on what the client needs. But it's really, to be honest, it's just all down to years and years of research, testing, experience, client feedback. And then with all of that combined, usually we're lucky enough to be able to help clients and give them the right solution.
I think it also makes sense testing like which apps work well together then.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have an app stack as opposed to just relying on one app to do everything.
That's one of our core principles, because obviously we don't like to give clients kind of siloed apps. We always make sure that everything is integrated and it's seamless, just because that's the best way forward, I guess. And that's the beauty of using cloud. We're predominantly cloud solutions. But yes, a lot of our testing isn't just, oh, great, app A is good and app B is good. We need to make sure that app A and app B are actually communicating the way we want them to. So yeah, a lot of testing goes there behind the scenes. A lot of dummy data, a lot of test data goes up. We literally try to break the apps. I mean, that's always something that we promise the application to do it, and then we're going to try to break it. So we learn your limits, and then when someone proves themselves like Sift, then we say, okay, we're good to go, and we then keep Sift in mind. So when a client comes in and says, I have a reporting need or requirement, we instantly know. Again, that's how it helps us to find. So by us testing and partnering with the right applications, it's much easier for us to say, okay, then this will most probably help you with your needs.
That makes sense. I'm glad to hear that Swift has got the stamp of approval.
Yes, for sure, for sure. We love Sift. We love Sift over here. Our clients love Sift as well, so that's a plus.
Double win. In terms of your clients, you work both with accounting firms and then also with their clients, so small businesses. What are some of the differences that you found in terms of recommending software for accountants versus for their clients?
Well, the main difference is usually they have very different objectives. So when you're looking at an accounting practice, they usually tend to have a bigger need towards applications that add value. So they would have already have tools to be able to do their work in an efficient way. And then they will ask for, okay, how can I give my clients even more value? How can I make management accounting more interesting rather than sending an Excel sheet? Can I maybe give them some KPIs? So accounting firms tend to be more focused towards that area. So they obviously they have instances where they need help with their internal tech stack. So you'll have, for example, the whole practice management, timesheets, and things like that. Obviously, it's very crucial for accounting firms, and we do help with that. But they usually focus on that, on, okay, listen, I have this set of clients and I want to give them more, but obviously I want to give them something, but I want to remain efficient. So usually that is the accounting firm. From a business and the clients of the accounting firm, the focus tends to be more on the whole automating manual processes. So you tend to find more kind of manual operations in businesses, especially family-owned businesses that have been here for a while, have been passed down from generation to generation. They'll have very paper-based processes. So usually our solutions there will focus less on the finance side and more on the operations, on getting their day-to-day more efficient. And then obviously the finance is definitely always a part of the picture, because everything that's happening in the operations need to feed to the finance. But usually that's the biggest difference. So one of them is focusing on, okay, I want to add value. I'm doing well. I want to add more to that. Businesses tend to be solving problems on a day-to-day operational level.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Businesses really need to focus on their core business and making those
Exactly.
processes more efficient
Yeah,
before they're moving on to the financial side.
exactly. The financials usually tend to be not the last step, but one of the last steps, because obviously if you have a shop and you don't have a point of sale set up and your stock is not up to date and maybe your e-commerce website is not linked, these things will cause massive issues. So in that situation, we start taking it piece by piece. So we look at the e-commerce side. Okay, how does that work? And then how does the e-commerce link to your inventory? We make those two work. And then once those two are speaking to each other, okay, how does all of that translate into the financial records? So it's really phased approaches, and yeah, usually, but it's a win-win. I mean, ultimately, if the operations are efficient, then the finance is efficient. So we're always helping the accountant at the end of the day,
It all
even
feeds to a
indirectly.
win. Yeah. From your perspective, what are some of the most common software-related struggles that accountants are facing today?
I think the biggest struggle is, I mean, it's software related, but also I would say culture related. It's just that they would subscribe to new software, but not dedicate the right amount of time to learn it and to use it properly. And what happens there is you could have the right technology. Like last time I gave an analogy is like you can put me in a Formula One car, which is technically the most advanced motor vehicle out there. But if you put me in it, I probably won't even start it. I won't know what to do. So you have the best technology available, but the user doesn't know how to use it. So you're not really getting the most out of it. And that's what we find in many cases. So you'll have firms who adopt software, but then they only use a bare minimum. And then what is, or what could be really useful, like with other features, they end up struggling with because they see it as a distraction, or they see it as super complicated and they won't know how to use it. So I think that's one of the biggest struggles we find. And then I think the biggest one is also, I mean, software related, yes, but the whole resistance to change. It's always it's a hard part to deal with. People don't usually like change. So when you go there with a new shiny software, some people might like it, some people might see it as the end of their career, and we've had some comments like that. But I think that's the biggest one. And then obviously we've seen as well a lot of isolated tools. So they will get different software which would be good at doing what they need to do, but then they don't communicate between each other. So then you end up having a missing cohesive reporting layer, or a lot of duplication of work. You have a system sending a notification, but then someone sends a chat and an email as well, and it's all a bit messy. So yeah, usually it's not the software is not the problem. It's who's using it and how they use it, because they don't dedicate their enough time to prepare themselves to use it, unfortunately.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think people get very used to using the software that they have been using or following the processes they've always been following. And some people might say, "Oh, but it's working. Why do we have to try something new?" And then
Yeah,
also getting everybody on the same page when you are trying something new is also a challenge.
exactly. Exactly. And also something that we do see and we try to resist a lot with our clients is you have instances where people get new software and they get the right software, but they use their old processes with the new software.
Mm.
So essentially, what you're doing is not digitalization, but it's a term called it exists called digital replication, because essentially you are taking what you're doing today on paper and just doing the exact same thing using a nice new software, but the process is still the same. It still takes the same amount of time. So a lot of people struggle with the notion of new software will only work if you adopt new processes, and that is always one of the hardest messages to get across. It's not easy, definitely not easy to as a business to come up with new processes, so we definitely acknowledge that. But with the right guidance, with the right tools, I think it's then it becomes slightly easier to kind of transition.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the note of things that people are a bit scared about, shaking up the kind of technological space or the accounting landscape, AI is really shaking up almost every part of the finance and accounting
Yeah.
landscape. How do you see it impacting the challenges that firms are facing? And do you think it's actually solving problems or is it adding more complexity?
So, yeah, AI is a big buzzword. Every single conference you go to, the theme is always AI nowadays. I think so. We work a lot with AI at Scope. We a lot of our clients see us as their reference point for anything software. So obviously need to be at the forefront and know what's happening. In terms of whether AI is actually solving problems, I would say it depends on the tasks you are trying to do. So there are instances where AI is a massive um, change and upgrade. When it comes to, for example, reporting, you look at SIFT, you have the AI icon everywhere. You just click on a button and it just summarizes the whole page for you. I mean, that is something that a normal human being would have taken easily 2 hours to do, and you have something that did it in like a minute. So I think there it is solving a problem. However, there are instances where by adopting AI without the right education, you might cause problems. So AI, especially for accounting firms, you need to have considerations such as where is my data being stored? If I write my client name, can someone else type on a chat GPT, how did Scope Limited do last year? And ChatGPT will actually give me my profit and loss. And there were instances of this where people unfortunately just did not do their research and started uploading P&Ls and balance sheets in chatbots. So in instances like that, it did cause a problem. Obviously, now there's a lot of guidance on firms having their AI policies and how to properly adopt AI. But it also introduces a new challenge of training people how to prompt AI, where to use AI, when to use AI. And I think if people are really, really equipped and they know how to use it, then it does solve massive problems. I personally use it for things that, something simple. I know a lot of people do this. For example, so we use Gemini internally at Scope. We love Gemini, and there's a notion of gems. So you can have these small gems that are trained and they have their own personality. And I have a gem, for example, that helps me with my emails, something that sometimes I'd had emails that used to take me hours to write. Now I just write bullet points and just spits out the email for you. So that's great. So it does help. And I think I always say this to my clients when they ask me about AI. I think forget AI. Think about something simple like Excel. We all take Excel for granted nowadays. There was a point where people used to do their bookkeeping on paper using a calculator. And obviously, when Excel was released, I'm sure a lot of people were like, what do I do? You know, it was something scary. It was something that seemed like it was going to take someone's job because someone doesn't need to have a fancy calculator to equal sum and you're done. So it's more of understanding the tool. So the same way that people took Excel and said, okay, this is how it works, and this is how I need to use it. It is when and in which instance you use it. And the moment you learn that, and I think the moment accountants learn that about AI and really knowing how to use it, how to properly prompt it, and when to use it, then I think it will be less scary. Then it will be more of I have this tool that I'm using, and I think I'm not saying like in 10 years' time, probably in the next year or so, we'll already be at that stage. But obviously, it's a bit scarier, you know, because of the whole media and movies about AI uprising. There was never a movie about Excel uprising, so I think that doesn't help people. But no, it is solving problems, and I think it will keep solving problems, and it will only get better. But we need to not just push it to the side. We need to embrace it and really understand it, and then once we understand it, we'll be able to use it even more for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the same as what you were saying about when people start using new cloud solutions. There are so many things that they can do with these tools, but if you don't dedicate time to actually learning how to use it,
Yeah.
how to make the most of it, then you're missing out on a lot of that value that you could be getting from the tool. So I think
Definitely.
AI is exactly the same.
It's just another tool. That's what I tell people. It's just another tool that there's a lot of obviously hype about, understandably so. I mean, it does things, it does incredible things. Yesterday, coincidentally, I used the Google video generator for the first time, and I gave it a very weird prompt, and it basically generated this beautiful scene out of a movie that would have taken a CGI artist days to do, you know, so it is impressive. It is incredibly impressive, but we can't let that um, um, hype and the kind of size of it scare us from trying to learn on how to use and adapt it in our processes for sure.
Yeah, you've got to kind of get past that overwhelm of, whoa,
Yeah,
can do so much to thinking, okay, what can it do for me? How can I prompt
exactly.
to help me?
Exactly. And taking it step by step as well. I think you can't just expect that in a day you're going to go and you're going to build a website, you know, from you need to step by step. Again, using the analogy of the Formula 1 car, if you put me in a Formula 1 car, I will not try to be Lewis Hamilton in one day. So what I will do at least is break it down into pieces, and I'll say, okay, step one, start the car. Step two, let's just try to, you know, press the throttle and move forward. And then slowly, eventually you'll get to that point. So step by step, people don't usually, they try to go, they try something, it doesn't work and they give up rather than
Yeah.
slowly adding to it, you know?
You actually, even though everything's evolving so quickly, you still need to have a bit of patience and a bit of patience with yourself
Yeah.
to get used to all of these new
For
things.
sure. For sure. For sure. You need to learn how to walk before you sprint. I guess that's always the whole.
Yeah,
It's applicable in everything you do.
no, completely. Um, I suppose looking towards the future, we've been talking about how all these tools have been evolving. Are there any emerging trends, features, or tools that you're really excited about right now?
Yeah, I think the most, I would say, recent update that got me really excited is the whole kind of notion of agents. The AI agent space is one of those things that will make a massive impact on businesses the moment that people get used to it and again learn how to use it. You literally have you have an assistant in your laptop which is doing repetitive tasks on your behalf, where before, obviously, when ChatGPT and Gemini came out, you could only ask them questions, and that's fine. But now moving in that phase where you literally have the AI actually doing certain tasks for you, I think that's a big trend and a big opportunity that we need to look at. And it got me really excited, to be honest, because again, even in my daily operations, I think it's going to help a lot. There are certain tasks that I do on a weekly basis, that I do on a monthly basis that, take me a couple of hours, that now I will just receive an email with a report done by an AI agent who did all the steps for me. And I can spend more time analyzing the data rather than building it, So that's something that I'm really, really excited about for sure. Yeah, the whole agent space.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really cool. Really taking away some of that admin and letting you focus on
Yeah.
your other more valuable work.
That's it, because it's if you analyze your day, like if you had to record yourself for 8 hours, you will find tasks that you don't even think about doing. You just do them because it's repetitive. You don't need to
Yeah.
think. It's always, listen, go here, download this, paste it here, download this from this other website, paste it, do a formula, generate this report. If you're doing that, and then the end, okay, generate the support, read it and analyze it. But by the time you do all those steps, you've already wasted an hour and a half. So if you have an agent who does that for you, then you can spend more time using your knowledge and experience, taking whatever that agent did for you and using that to help either your business or your team or your clients, whatever it is. So it's more using AI to give us more time. For me, that's the way I see it. So
Yeah.
the biggest value it gives us is it removes, like you said, those administrative tasks that unfortunately always increased. It's always somehow a new legislation comes in, a new law comes in, or a new promotion. You get promoted and all of a sudden you have to do something like reviewing timesheets, something that in any service-based industry someone has to do. That's something I have to do, and I don't mind reviewing the timesheets. I obviously have to do it, but what takes time sometimes is going in and organizing the data in a way that I wanted to see it. So if you have an agent who's going, picking all that data, organizing it for you, applying certain filters, that's saving me so much time, and I can actually focus on analyzing the data then, and speaking to people who maybe need some help, maybe who are doing really well, and you need to kind of tell them, listen, keep up the good work. And that's something that AI will not be doing. So that's something that we need to do. But AI is helping us do that in a more efficient way, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a tradition on the podcast where we like to wrap up with a few rapid fire questions. So I'm
Okay.
going to quickly ask you these, and you say the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
First one is, what's the best book you've read recently?
So the best book I've read is a book called Ikigai. I forgot the author. I mean, they're Spanish, I think, so the Spanish surname, so I won't try to pronounce them, but it's a very popular book. Um, um, it's a very impactful book. I would recommend it to everyone. It's about the Japanese secret to a long life, but it really focuses on making the most out of your day, finding what makes you happy, understanding where you fit in this world. And it's a small book. I mean, I read it in one flight, so it's not a long read, and but it's one of the most impactful books I ever read in my life. So that's definitely one for everyone to read.
Awesome. I will definitely link that so that everyone who's listening can go check it out.
Yeah.
And then lastly, if there's one thing that people would take away from today's podcast, what would you want that to be?
So I think two things. One thing that I always like to suggest to people who I meet is, so I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm a big George Lucas fan, and there is a documentary that's called Light and Magic, and I would recommend that every accountant watches that, even if they're not Star Wars fans, because essentially what this shows you is this person, George Lucas, who had a massive idea. Star Wars was all his idea, and he had a challenge, and he said, listen, I need to find a way to make these movies, and he founded this company called Light and Magic. And what I feel is super relevant to what's happening to accountants right now is how you see that when they filmed the first Star Wars, they had people who were the best model makers in the world doing everything by hand. So every spaceship, every alien you see, that was someone who meticulously painted and built a model that took them days to do. For sometimes a scene which is like 2 minutes, not even like for even stop motion takes hours for like 30 seconds. And you see how these model makers and these artists had a challenge that eventually someone came in and told George Lucas, listen, I have something called a computer and it does CGI, and now you don't need models anymore. And you see how these model makers and artists kind of split into two groups. And one group embraced the new technology and said, how can I use my skill and talent with the new technology? And those people ended up leading Light and Magic, so industrial, like they leaded the company. And then there was another group that resisted that change and saw it as a threat and said, no, no, listen, that will never be able to do what we do. What we do is much more human, it's more personalized. And they resisted it and unfortunately ended up out of the company because they couldn't keep up. So, and I always suggest this documentary to accountants just because it shows you that we're not the only ones impacted by new technology. This happens in every industry all the time. And it also shows you how, again, like embracing technology and seeing it as an opportunity rather than a threat actually helps you. And it helps you in your career, it helps you advance, progress, it helps you with your output. I mean, if you look at the latest Star Wars, movies, series, they look beautiful. Like there's everything that you can imagine they can now do. So imagine if back then George Lucas said, I don't want to use this new technology, I will stick to using puppets and models. We would not have what we have today. So it was someone who embraced technology and said, yes, this is where we should go. And I think that's something that I always recommend. Obviously, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's even more entertaining. If you're not, maybe you become one. I don't know. But it really shows you, and I think it gives you perspective on the current challenges that we're living through and how people have already gone through them. And some people really got the best and took that opportunity and really used it to take their career in so many beautiful places. So that's what I would definitely recommend.
I love that. I have to say, after we spoke the other day, I actually went and started watching the
Okay,
documentary.
okay.
Um,
Good to
so I
hear.
think there's so much to learn from that. From the amazing things that they did when they were building out those models back in the day to
Yeah,
how, I haven't gotten to the part where they're embracing the new technology yet, but I'm quite
yeah,
excited to see the differences. Also because you can see then the difference in the sort of picture quality, what we expect to see today with CGI versus what you could see when that first film came out. And I think it's also a really great reminder, as you said, that this is something that impacts every industry. So accountants aren't alone. Every industry has to think about the ways that technology are going to change their work.
for
But
sure.
also, I think seeing it as an opportunity, as you say, rather
For
than
sure.
as a threat. It's
For
something
sure.
to learn from, and your role will only, it'll grow and it'll change, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
For sure. I think something to keep in mind is that digital transformation isn't an event, but it's a journey. It takes time, and technically it never ends. I mean, it's you never stop innovating. And as a business, if you decide or anything, even if you're a CFO, if you're in practice, the moment you say, I'm happy with what I have, and I will never look at improving or changing. That is the moment where you and your business will stop growing. This is like, again, if I had to link it to George Lucas, if at one point he said, I'm happy with this technology, whatever comes along, I'm not going to I'm not going to look at it and I'm going to keep doing things, then we would never have the movies that we have today. And you see how year in, year out, they're always adding new technology because that's how you keep up and that's how you keep progressing. So the moment you also see it as a journey, it becomes less daunting as well, because it's not something that you feel pressure that, oh my goodness, a year passed and we're still using the same software. But you need to see it the other way around. Like a year passed, we're using the software, we are comfortable using it now. What is the next step? What is it? It never finishes. It's like continuous learning. I mean, the moment someone says, I know everything, then that's a problem. That no one ever knows everything. So you always need to keep learning. And the same thing with software, digital transformation. I guess that's what makes our life a bit more exciting. And I think, again, I wouldn't say it's scary to be an accountant these days. I think it's more of an exciting thing, knowing that what you're doing today, possibly in the next 2 years, will be completely different. And again, now that excites me. Some people are scared of that, and I guess it's normal. But if you embrace it and if you have a chat with your colleagues, educate yourself, watch webinars like this. There's so much material online. I think if you prepare yourself to embrace that change, then it becomes, I won't say easy. I'll say it becomes easier to do. And then you end up loving it. So that's what happened to me.
Yeah, if you keep yourself open to the possibility of continuing to learn, continuing to change, then I think it is a really exciting journey to be on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's always exciting. I mean, continuous learning, always fun. It's a bit stressful at times, for sure. The moment there will be days where you feel that you settled and then someone else comes and tells you, by the way, we have a new software that does what you're doing. But again, it's just taking a step back, always thinking of the root cause. I think that's always important. So always saying, okay, am I getting this software to solve a problem? Am I getting it because my colleague got it and told me it looks really cool? So always important that you don't adopt software for the sake of adopting softwares, because you get a lot of clients get FOMO. So like, everyone is doing it, so we do it. So every time someone presents you with a new software, you should always ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Is it going to solve a problem? If it's not solving a problem, is it adding value? But if the answers to those questions are always no, and you're just getting the software so you can tell your colleagues that you bought the same software, then that's a problem. Then you shouldn't get that software. But if it solves even one of your problems, then you should start looking into it, but not rush as well. So if you are interested, if you think that a software will solve a problem for you, then you say, okay, let me look into it. And you slowly start building towards, again, adding that to your transformation journey.
Right. Yeah, I think really good advice. And people can, of course, reach out to you at Scope Solutions for advice on the kind of software that they could be using in their business as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, feel free to reach out. We have our website, LinkedIn. We're all very active there as well. We're always happy to help and contribute. And anyone who feels lost, especially, we're happy to be their guide and help them get through this journey in a peaceful manner and in a way that is not scary, but it's more exciting than scary.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mick, and thank you everyone who's been watching this episode today. I hope that everyone will go home and watch the documentary on
Yeah.
George Lucas and the making of Star Wars, and just see new software as a new opportunity. I
For
think
sure.
that's my key takeaway.
For sure. Thank you very much for having me. It was really fun. And thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, watch that documentary for sure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.